Hello and welcome back. What are my favourite books of 2022? So unfortunately I've become a very critical reader. Nowadays I rarely give books 5 stars. If I give a book 5 stars, that means this book was amazing. So we have 8 books that have been my favourite books of 2022. So one of my favourite books of this year, starting out strong, is the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. I think that's her name. They're really short novellas. I think there's 5 of them altogether and they're like ranging from 100 pages to 200 pages, so really short. It's a serial killer ex-FBI investigator. It's beautiful. It's mystery thriller, romance. It was so unique because you never get to see like a female serial killer. She's looking for revenge because something happened and she wants to kill everyone. So the serial killer's name is Lana, the investigator's name is Logan, and they made each other and they're basically trying to help one another because the investigator's trying to find out why all these people are dying. But lo and behold, he doesn't know that it's Lana. I loved it. It was so good. Recommend. For my 2022 best books of this year, I'm trying to do different formats. So my favourite audiobook of this year was Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This wasn't my favourite book of the year, it was just my favourite audiobook. So Renegades by Marissa Meyer is such an interesting take on superheroes and villains. Like if you like Marvel, if you like DC, I would definitely recommend reading this trilogy. The Renegades people are human with supernatural abilities. So let's say one can possess wind. Well, the Renegades are the superheroes. I don't really remember what the villains are called, but Nova doesn't like the Renegades because something happened in her past and she doesn't trust them anymore. So something happens to Nova in her early life which caused her to not like the Renegades anymore. She's trying to find answers to what happened to her in her early life. If you're going to read these books, I would definitely pick up the audiobook for it. It's in Barrow Box. I would say it might be in Libby, but it was just so gripping. It was so immersive. There's loads of action scenes. I don't know, it's just a really interesting take on superheroes. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend. So the next book I absolutely loved is The Four Winds by Christian Hannah. This book to me is better than The Nightingale. For The Nightingale, it's a World War II book. There's already so many World War II books out there. But this one is about the Americans' Great Depression of the 1930s and the Dust Bowl, and it's something I didn't even know about. It was so interesting to learn what happened. It follows the main character Elsa. She lives on a farm, she lives with her family, it's going all good, but then a drought happens which is obviously not good for farmers at all, so it really shakes up the community. But then Elsa gets herself pregnant. The environment is getting a lot more worse and Elsa has to think about her children. So right now it's Elsa and her children and her family that are on the farm right now, and every day they have to wake up the crack of dawn, do all the chores so they could have like food on the table. And it's getting so much more worse where they're living. Elsa has to decide if she wants to take her children to somewhere else where, like it's been saying on the radio, that it's a better place. This book holds so many challenges. You can just see the love a mother has for her children, and it was such a beautiful book. I cried. I just absolutely adored this book. It was so good. And following on from Christian Hannah, we have another one from her, The Great Alone. This one I read more recently, and if I had to tier rank, I actually can't. I won't be able to tier rank The Nightingale, The Four Winds and The Great Alone. Oh my god, I don't know which one I would put first. The Four Winds is definitely first. I don't know what I'd put after that, because The Great Alone, that was an interesting book too. It was set in Alaska. It was back in the early 90s, mid 90s. It's the mother, the father and their child. So the father went into the Vietnam War and he came back, but this guy has so much trauma, so much PTSD. So one of the father's friends from the Vietnam War, he died, but he left a house for the father in Alaska. So this family has been moving like probably every year because the father cannot hold a job. He has a drinking problem, he's anger issues, and they're always moving around the place. When he finds out that they have a house in Alaska, he's immediately not even thinking about the rest of the family and their feelings. We're going to Alaska, get your stuff, we're going. Move to Alaska in a really isolated place. Alaska is a very cold place, and especially where they chose to live, it's really isolated. You have to get your own food. You basically don't have any heat, you don't have electricity. It's just you, your family in a house, and that is not great for this family. It's a really tight-knit community and you can just see the hopefulness, the survival instincts. I cried because there's so much trigger warnings. Death of a loved one, oh my god, I just remembered that character. This book is so sad. Alcohol abuse, physical abuse, manipulation. I would highly recommend this book because it was beautiful. The next book that's my favourite book of 2022 is The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams, and I need to read more by Sarah Adams. She's on Kindle Unlimited. Granted, I don't have Kindle Unlimited anymore, but I will next year. I adore friends to lovers in books. This is like childhood friends pining to lovers. I don't know where pining came into that, but I loved this book. I think the male character too, he's a football player. So it's like a sports romance. I devoured this book so quickly. I cannot remember anything else about the book besides that it is good. Next one's a series. I don't actually know if I started it in 2022, but I read most of the volumes in 2022. I just started in 2021. But it's called Fence by C.S. Pacat. This series, if you like Heartstopper, please read this graphic novel series. You get the same emotions if you read Heartstopper and if you read this book. It's a 5-book graphic novel series currently. An academy of boys, but there is one girl. So I don't actually know if it's mixed, but I think it's predominantly boys. So it's a school, but also a fencing academy. And oh my god, the main character, Nicholas, you just will not be able to not love him. He's just the most likable golden retriever guy. So a lot of the book deals with them fencing, but there's a really good group of friends. I loved this series so much. It just makes you feel so happy. So there's competitions and Nicholas like really wants to beat his like arch enemy Sejai. I think that's how you say his name, Sejai. But Sejai is this really like brooding character. They're polar opposite, but I love it so much. I highly recommend. The next book is a book that got me out of a reading slump. It's such an interesting concept. It's not my favourite book of 2022, but I'm putting it in this because it got me out of my reading slump slightly. And it's The Depths by Nicole Lesperance. First off, the cover is really cool. And this is from Owl Crate, I think, so it has like a lovely cover. But this concept of the book, I've never heard about it before, or I've never read something like this. The main character, Addie, she goes to a remote island for her mother's honeymoon. This island is a very freaky island. It seems like it's alive. Really strange things happen in this island, like the flowers turn specific colours. The branches, the twigs like follow Addie around. It's very creepy and it's so cool. The history of this island is that 2 sisters died, and Addie's trying to find out like how they died or why they died. And it's just really cool. I really recommend. The last book of my favourites of 2022 is House of Earth and Blood. This was a reread because I read House of Sky and Breath, and you might be wondering, is House of Sky and Breath on the list after this book? It is not. It was not my favourite book of 2022. I'm as shocked as you, but this book is one of my favourite books of all time. This is my second time reading it and I was tearing up again. I was crying. I absolutely adore this book. House of Sky and Breath, I think it was a letdown for me because this book, I hold this on such a high pedestal. I had such high expectations for House of Sky and Breath. Granted, the last line of House of Sky and Breath was phenomenal, blew me away, but I can't really give it 5 stars if I didn't feel like the rest of the book was phenomenal, whereas I found this book absolutely mind-bogglingly great. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.